Chapter 25. Part 2. God's Favor. Let's look at three central Bible figures and their experiences with God's favor during their purpose preparation journey. Here is Joseph's account. He is the one who was sold as a slave by his brothers to the Egyptians. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight, and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put under his authority. So it was, from the time that he had made him overseer of his house and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Genesis chapter 39 verses 1 through 5. Joseph began as a lowly slave and a teenager at that. Very quickly, God elevated him to be the second ruler of a prestigious household and overseer of its vast wealth. He and his master prospered greatly. This wasn't a one-time thing either. Here is what happened when Joseph was thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. Then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined. And he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. Genesis chapter 39 verses 21 through 23. But would it surprise you to know that Joseph's favor and prosperity didn't begin there? Remember, Joseph's wilderness training began before slavery, back in his father's house. Even in that household, he had supernatural favor, even though he was the 11th brother out of 12. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. But that's just it. Joseph wasn't the youngest son of Jacob's old age. There was Benjamin. And yet Jacob still loved Joseph more. Here's the Bible scripture of one simple act from Joseph's father that demonstrates supernatural favor in action. Also he made him a tunic of many colors. Genesis chapter 37 verse 3. First comes the favor, and then comes the prosperity. In this case, both were demonstrated through the gift of the unique, colorful tunic. Finally, when Joseph was crossing his proverbial Jordan River into his purpose, there was another major demonstration of favor. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you." And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." I'm going to interrupt this scripture for a moment just to remind the audience that the Pharaoh just met Joseph that very day, probably less than 2 hours earlier. And the Pharaoh knew that Joseph was a slave and had been incarcerated in prison for years for betraying his former Egyptian master. For all he knew, Joseph was a dangerous, untrustworthy criminal. Yet for some inexplicable reason, the Pharaoh made Joseph ruler of the most powerful and wealthy nation in that region of the world. Now, if that wasn't supernatural favor, I don't know what is. Let's continue the Bible story. Then Pharaoh took his signet off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and he clothed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck, and he had him ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried out before him, "Bow the knee." So he set him over all the land of Egypt. Genesis chapter 41 verses 39 through 44. From prison to a powerful ruler on the same day, incredible. Two underlining factors were seen in this story to bring about this end: unusual favor and prosperity. Favor, in the original Hebrew of the Old Testament scriptures, simply means kindness and graciousness. Or another way of saying it, God made sure Joseph received preference from his master in everything he did. Prosperity, in the original Old Testament Hebrew, means to get behind you and push you forward toward success. And in the Greek of the New Testament scriptures, prosperity means to help you along the road toward success. Imagine if, while you are moving forward in your spiritual journey, that God got behind you and pushed you forward along the way, that He was there expressly to help you succeed. Would you like God to do that for you? Well, that is what happens when you give up your old life for Christ and take up a new life for God, with God. He gets behind you and pushes you along the road of this purpose journey. The other day I was listening to a sermon where the pastor explained the biblical recipe for receiving God's favor and prosperity in life, and I chose to include the main elements of the teaching in this purpose series. Just as there is a path to your purpose, there is also a distinct path to favor and prosperity, and all three go hand in hand. To start with, in order to receive God's favor and prosperity, as had occurred with Joseph, you need to have God's presence in your life. Let's look at the scriptures on this. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph and he was a successful man. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight. Genesis chapter 39 verses 1 through 4. Here's another account. Then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. Genesis chapter 39 verses 20 through 23. God's powerful presence is what brings favor and prosperity. Ponder this truth a moment. Listen to it again even, because it is vital for all of us to understand. God's presence is what brings real favor and prosperity, nothing else. Now, the vital question is, how does a person truly have God's presence in their life? I'll clearly explain how this works in the next video.